Hello and welcome to our presentation. We are going to draw from Nurho de Manhar's the Zohar, Bereshith to Leka, or the Book of Light. And this is about Kabbalah. It's Kabbalistic writing. And oh, I apologize. I forgot to tell you when it was published, which was in 1914. So it's old, but it's not old per se. It is in the public domain, and I'm sure there are a lot of you out there who are authorities on the Kabbalah. However, I read a variety of different writings from a variety of different authors, and there are a variety of books about the Kabbalah. In fact, I have several titles about the Kabbalah, and none of them are the same. So with that in mind, we're going to look at some pieces here that I made notations of. And this particular presentation comes from the second chapter, or the second book, called Genesis. And in it, the author writes that before the advent of the light, universal darkness prevailed, and the waters were congealed so that the earth was without rivers or streams. Now, the first place our mind goes to is the earth, the planet, and it goes to the waters, oceans. But congealed, we might see that as being frozen, but congealed does not mean frozen. It merely means thick. So there is yet flow, but the flow is so slow it could be considered minuscule. However, I would like to present a different view of this. Instead of looking at this as creation per se of the planet and such, let's consider this as something else. Maybe a more abstract position, which might read, before the advent of wisdom, there was universal ignorance, and the flow of consciousness was congealed so that there were no instructors or places of learning. Now, from a spiritual position, and spiritual is progressive, abstract, thinking, intellectual, we can see how the intellect, man's intellect, may appear to be frozen in place. His thinking is not abstract, because reasoning is an abstract exercise, an abstract mental exercise. That is reasoning. Reasoning is determining a cause for an effect. Whereas impulsiveness has no care about what the cause of any event, the cause of water, why does water flow? No care. And so, with that in mind, there would be universal ignorance. Because ignorance is essentially a lack of knowledge or a lack of wisdom. And wisdom is the key here. Wisdom. Wisdom is the light, because knowledge is worthless until you know how to apply it. So this may be a more accurate description of the potential of humankind, because the earth itself has always been fruitful. Always. The earth does not need humans. It is humans who need the earth. And the sooner we realize that, perhaps the sooner we will start taking care of, we will start being stewards of this garden, this planet, this earth that we have been so graciously allowed to people. So he continues with, on the appearance of light, however, they were liquefied by its rays, meaning that the streams, the waters, the rivers liquefied by the rays and became fluid, and in the arid earth refreshed by them, was rendered fertile and adaptable. So if we continue with this idea of wisdom being the light and the rivers and streams being the flow of consciousness, the activity of thinking, thoughts represent the flow of consciousness. And what is it that the brain is good at, or the mind is good at? Creating ideas. And it is the birthing of ideas that make us creators, that are in this whole concept of the creator, is the birthing of ideas, bringing ideas from here to what is around you. That is the birthing of ideas. And with the appearance of wisdom, when we began to look for the causes, such as why does the water flow in this direction, and we discover that, however it comes about, we discover that water flows in this particular direction because as we walk upstream, we travel uphill, however slightly. And with that, we may deduce that water flows downward from a higher position to a lower position. That is the appearance of light, the appearance of wisdom, and the beginnings of the flow of consciousness. Ideas begin to form. We begin to realize that the water flows downhill because the water is higher and it flows into the lower. And as it continues to flow, it will continue to move from a higher position to a lower position. Not that water will go up to a higher position, but that the lower position will eventually become a higher position. And thus the water continues to flow. That is how we have the waterfalls. Higher position to a lower position. As the water fills the lower position, the water itself rises. And when it reaches the crest, it flows to a lower position. That is the flow of consciousness. That is ideas coming from here and moving outward from our hands to being shaped, to being created. With the appearance of wisdom, consciousness began to flow, and the arid mind of humankind was refreshed and rendered fertile and malleable. The human mind, humankind, the mind was refreshed and rendered fertile, meaning that we go through these periods, call them writer's block, white paper, fear of the canvas, whatever, but we have these stretches to where it seems as though ideas or thoughts don't flow as well as they did. They're kind of slow, kind of congealed, slowly oozing through. And when we get this idea and we begin to build upon this idea, then that congealing of thoughts begins to liquefy and the ideas begin to flow once more. People go through this. Entire civilizations go through this. It's you could consider it to be part of the natural flow. And people began to think for themselves. And if you were to gaze upon history, you would find that there were periods where the mind seemed congealed and the people were led by those whose perspective was so narrow that they only served themselves. Consider the medieval ages or the dark ages, where only certain ranked people of a certain societal rank or the priests were above all and directed the people. And the priests who claimed to serve God served themselves. Because when you serve God, everyone benefits. But when you benefit and no one else benefits, you are not serving God. You are serving yourself. And he continues to write that the celestial light of which Scripture speaks existed from all eternity. As soon as it dawned, its splendor was visible from one extremity of the world to the other. But foreseeing that it would be unappreciated and unregarded by mankind in general, the divine being concealed it so that it should be accessible only to those who walk in the straight and narrow path leading to its discovery and enjoyment. The intelligence within humankind has always existed. Intelligence has always existed. It lays dormant for periods of time until someone begins to recognize that, wait a moment, the water has stopped flowing. Why has the water stopped flowing? And when we investigate, we discover that the flow of the water is blocked. And if the flow of consciousness is blocked, there can be no growth. And we consider the wisdom that has always existed. Always existed. We tap into this wisdom through meditation, through immersion in our activities. We tap into this field of information, collective consciousness, however you want to put it. We tap into that. So that wisdom has always existed. And when we realize that, when someone realized that, they shared that concept and its availability to the world. However, those who were in power were not appreciative of the wisdom that was brought forth, dismissed it. Think of Galileo. Think of all those scientists before the age of the Renaissance, the age of rediscovery, the age of rebirth. Think of all those scientists who were persecuted for their ideas, persecuted because they discovered that it was the earth that moved around the sun and not the sun that moved around the earth. Who discovered that the stars move. Think of those people and what they went through. And having the foresight, seeing this, unappreciated and unregarded by mankind in general, the divine being concealed it so that it should be accessible only to those who walk in the straight and narrow path. And the only straight and narrow path is your path. Those people who moved forward with their discoveries, who believed in what they discovered, who recognized the value and did not turn away from the path. They took joy in that knowledge. They took joy in their discovery, despite others scoffing at them, oppressing them, persecuting them. The divine being did not conceal this wisdom. The divine being didn't have to conceal it because humankind was and is generally blinded by its brilliance. The wisdom of intelligence is only experienced by those who are true to themselves, and the guidance of the divine, I should say, through the guidance of the divine. They share these discoveries. These discoveries are used to aid others. And he continues with the secret place resembles a narrow path, most difficult to discover and walk, and therein yet be studded with many priceless gems. The secret place. Where is the secret place? The secret place is here. The secret place is being able to withdraw within yourself, whether you call it meditation or you call it something else. I'm familiar with the term meditation. I'm familiar with its methodology, its potential. So I use that term, but there are other terms. Anything that gets you to the point to where you are opened and are receiving, you have to be receptive. And when you are receptive, all this information begins to flow through you. All this information that is available, that was congealed, is warmed by your brilliance and begins to flow in you. At the time of creation, there was no distinction, no dark, deep gulf or rent between heaven and the earth. When, however, they became separated, the earth fell into the state of chaos and confusion, and only by the action and silent operation of the heavenly light can they again become united. What is this telling us? Before the time of creation, or at the time of creation, they're speaking about you before you were born. There was no distinction between the tangible realm and the intangible realm. No distinction. They were both the same. And these realms are also known as heaven and the earth. And when they become separated, when the birth occurs, the distinction is made with the first light that we see as a babe, fresh from the womb. The first light that we see is knowledge. It is that knowledge that we are someplace else. We do not know where we are at, but we know that we are not where we were before, because in the womb was dark or gray. If the light penetrated into the womb, it would be gray. It would be like an overcast sky. And with an overcast sky, you do not know if it is dark or light. And when birth occurs, that first light, that silent operation of the heavenly light. And when we are here, it is our responsibility to discover our purpose. And when we understand our purpose is made clear to us. And our purpose is always part of discovering how to being the light, to be wisdom, to be wise, and yet walk among those who are, well, those who choose to scoff at us, who choose to oppress us, who choose to persecute us. It takes strength, it takes courage to walk through that. And when you make that discovery, we call it courage, but there is a silent joy within because you know something that they don't. And that brings you joy. With the intake of that first breath, with that begins a life of chaos and confusion until the light from the right hand of God falls upon you, and the darkness from the left hand also went forth and encompassed you. Thus they became blended, the light being hidden within the darkness. Upon birth, the wisdom that was mixed with ignorance, that is, making wisdom buried in ignorance. Before we become wise, we must first recognize that we are ignorant. And it is upon that recognition that the darkness becomes illuminated. And as this illumination spreads within us, we discover that there is no day without night and no night without day in this world. There is no wisdom without first being ignorant. We have to ask the question. And before you can ask the question, you have to recognize the need for asking the question. That is always the first spark of light. That is always the path out of ignorance and into wisdom. And with this realization, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens very slowly because the path that you walk is your path, and your path is narrow. It's only for you. You and others can walk along similar paths, but your path is always for you, and it is only you can walk it. Henceforth, the narrow path, the narrow way. And it is difficult to discover because we are distracted by other paths. In this instance, we are distracted by the Zohar because the Zohar tells us of a path, but does not tell you of your path. This is the great law of the universe. Wisdom rises from ignorance, only to fall back into ignorance. And there are many ways to express this. Growth and decay must exist at the same time. Life and death must always exist. This is the law of the universe. And those who accomplish this realization will discover this prophecy. The darkness and the light shall both be alike. Meaning that within ignorance is wisdom, and within wisdom is ignorance. I hope this gave you some ideas to contemplate. And this is, as I said, this is only my interpretation. There are hundreds of people out here with their own little podcasts, their own little YouTube channel, spouting the same thing. But we all have different interpretations. And it's these interpretations that will resonate with some and not with others. And that is how it should be. But always remember, it is their path that you are hearing about. And you must apply what you have gained to your path. If you found this useful, like the video, subscribe, and in the meantime, enjoy.